Hello, everybody. Happy Friday afternoon. We are 2 days away, guys. 2 days away. 2 days away from Seahawks football. In fact, we are now about 48 hours away from knowing whether or not we've beaten or been beaten by the Atlanta Falcons week one. So, less than 2 days by some measure. So, we're excited. I'm excited. I know you're excited. Less than 2 days away from meaningful Seahawks football. And before we get into making videos about specific games, which that's going to come tomorrow, Falcons pregame video hits tomorrow. I want to make one last video about this team as a whole and my expectations for this team and my what I'll be looking to praise or blame for those expectations either being met or fallen short of. Because this year I feel the urgency of making big decisions has never been higher. And first, before I get into why I feel that way, my expectations for this season are as follows. I expect this team to at least get to the NFC title game, to make the Final Four. I expect this team to have a top 5 offense that makes positive strides in situational play calling with their run percentages in certain situations, which is why I'm going to be tracking the run percentages of this team as the season goes on. I expect this defense to, at least in the second half of the season, but probably throughout the entire season, honestly, have a top 10 defense and to generate pressure at an improved rate from last season, which is why I'm keeping track of our pass rush metrics as the season goes on. And I expect this front office to prove that, at least in some areas, they are capable of making good decisions, which is why I'm weekly keeping track of Bobby Wagner's performance this season, because one of the biggest decisions this front office made in recent times is trading Frank Clark so they could retain Bobby Wagner without crippling their cap. And whether or not Bobby Wagner can justify that decision with good play in 2020 is going to go a long way to proving whether or not the front office made a reasonable decision there. So, these expectations need to be met, in my opinion, especially the first one, but even the other three ones really need to be met. And unlike the last 2 years, where I've been a little more malleable, where I've been a little more prone to cutting this team a little bit of slack, there's really no excuse for these expectations not being met, in my opinion. If we do not meet these expectations, then I believe it will be time to find a new front office and a new coaching staff. It's really that simple, and I'm going to go into why here. First of all, if you take a look at the coaching staff, the pieces have been in place for long enough. Obviously, the head coach has been here now. This is his 11th year, but both coordinators, offensive and defensive coordinators, have been here. This is their third year now. They are entering their third year now. There's no more excuses for these guys. They either need to perform in a big and impressive way, or they need to get out and make way for somebody who will perform. Pete is obviously the big one. He's been here over a decade, but the coordinators too. I want to throw them in as well. They've been here long enough to have acclimated themselves to the pieces they have to work with and acclimated themselves to their expectations to excel. But if you look at the players, you will also see this. The quarterback has been here. This is his 9th year now. The running back is entering his 4th year. The top receiver is entering his 6th year. The second wide receiver is entering his 2nd year. Our secondary tight end and eventual probable top tight end is entering his 3rd year. I know we haven't seen him a lot because he's gotten hurt a lot, but he's been on the team for now 2 full years, going on a 3rd. We should expect him to be pretty well acclimated to this offense. The left tackle has been here for 4 years. The left guard has been here for, this is his 2nd year now. So the pieces, the primary pieces of this offense have been in place for a long time. There's no excuse for them not to perform consistently at a high level. This front office and this coaching staff has had the opportunity to decide whether or not they like these guys. They have had the opportunity to decide, do we want to bring in somebody to replace this guy? And over again, they have decided, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to roll with these guys. So there is no excuse for them to not perform at a high level. Obviously, there are a couple new pieces on this offense. Backup running back is one, but that's a backup running back, Carlos Hyde. He'll get on the field some, obviously, but he's not a huge part of this offense. Greg Olson is new. He is new. He did just get here. Some people will say Ethan Posick is new because this is his first year starting, but we all know he's been here for 3 full years. This is now his 4th year on the Seahawks. He should be acclimated to this team. There's no excuse for him to not perform well at center. This team had the opportunity to go sign a big name center or draft a big name center this offseason. They rolled with keeping Posick around. He won the job. He needs to perform. The time for excuses for this offense is over. And honestly, I have a decent amount of confidence that this offense is going to be very good this year. So I'm not even really tripping on those guys. I think they're going to play fine. I trust those players. I don't totally trust the play calling. I don't trust Schottenheimer. And as an extension of that, I don't totally trust Carroll and what he's telling Schottenheimer to do. But the offense should be fine. The main thing I want to look at is this defense, because the defense, especially these last 2 years, have had a bit of an excuse. And I've been willing to cut them a little bit of slack the last 2 years because we blew up after 2017. We got rid of Sherman. We got rid of Cam, or we lost Cam, lost Bennett, lost Averill, lost Sheldon Richardson, although he had just gotten there. We basically lost Earl because he only played 3.5 games after that season was over. And we had a lot of dead cap. We lost a lot of star power. We lost a lot of talent, and we had to kind of rebuild on the fly. I get it. It's not going to be easy to create a great defense when you just had to lose all that talent in one off season. So 2018, we had a pretty average defense, and I was fine with that. That was fine. It was actually pretty commendable that the defense held together as good as they did. Last year, a little bit of that too. The defense regressed, which is a big problem in my opinion, but I get it. I got it to a certain degree. However, in 2020, the time for the excuses is over. This is year 3 of the on-the-fly rebuild of the defense. We have now had multiple full off seasons, if you want to count this off season, which I will grant you was a little wonky. We have now had 3 full off seasons and 2 full seasons to fix this defense. And if you look up and down this defensive roster, you might not be in love with the players, but the bottom line is the investment is there. Our top defensive end was a 3rd-round pick, and he's entering his 3rd season. There's no excuse for him to not be ready to become a stud on this defensive line. Our second defensive end was somebody we signed in free agency for $4 million, Benson Mayowa. Not the greatest player, but we did decide to bring him in this offseason. That was on Carroll and John. They decided to bring in Benson Mayowa for $4 million and make him our second defensive end. Our third defensive end, second year, not a ton of NFL experience, but he was a first-round pick. Pete and John decided to make him our first-round pick in 2019. They have to live with that. They have hitched their wagons to LJ Collier becoming a very good player. That's what it means when you draft somebody in the first round. Our top defensive tackle, this is his 5th year, Jaron Reid, a 2nd-round pick. He was drafted in the 2nd round back in 2016. And more than all of that, we chose to give him a contract extension this offseason. And his cap hit in 2020 is $9.3 million. So no matter how you slice it, Jaron Reid, the front office and the coaching staff bet on him having a big season in 2020. The draft pick expenditure is there, the monetary expenditure is there, his experience is there. He's been on this team a long time. This is a piece that needs to be clicking in this season, or else let the front office and the coaches fall on the axe for it. Even our secondary defensive tackle, Poona Ford, the 2nd best defensive tackle on this team, not exactly a high pick. He was undrafted, not exactly a lot of money, but this is his 3rd season. He should be completely familiar with our role for him. He should completely understand what we need of him. So I'm going to hold him to a high standard. He needs to perform, and if he doesn't perform, then I'm going to be looking to the front office and the coaches and asking, if he's not performing, why didn't you move on from him in the offseason? Why didn't you get somebody to replace him? Why didn't you train him better this offseason? Why didn't you groom him better? Middle linebacker, obviously, it's all there. 9th season. He's been on this team for as long as Wilson has. Nobody should be more familiar with this defense than him, except maybe one guy. He was a 2nd-round pick forever ago, and he is counting a cap hit of almost $15 million this year. So we are spending big money on a very experienced, very familiar middle linebacker. He needs to have a monster season, or else why do we give him all that money? Why do we keep him around at all? You know, the front office needs to be held responsible for whatever Bobby does or does not do this year, because it was completely in their power to decide whether or not they were going to keep him this year. It was completely in their power whether or not we were going to make him one of the highest paid linebackers in the league. This isn't like 2018 when we had to toss guys out there like Jacob Martin and God, who was that crappy linebacker we had to throw out there in a few games? The most Austin something. I can't even remember his name. That's how forgettable he was. And we had to throw a rookie Trey Flowers out there. These are not guys we had to throw out there because there's nobody else out there and we didn't have any money and we didn't have draft picks to go get somebody better. These are guys we picked. These are guys we invested a ton in. That's where this defense needs to impress me, or else. And when I say or else, I'll get to that later. But top outside linebacker, 10th season. He's been here a decade now. This is his 10th season. And his contract, which we could have cut and saved a bunch of money, pays him $10 million this season. That's a lot of money. It could have gone somewhere else. We decided to bring back KJ. Nobody else made that decision but us. Nobody forced us to make that decision. He needs to perform big, or else why didn't we move on this offseason? Our secondary outside linebacker, Bruce Irvin, $5.5 million contract, about the same amount of money that Everson Griffin got from the Cowboys. And I know who I think is better at rushing the QB, but either way, this team decided to bring in Bruce Irvin for a significant price tag. If he does not perform, then the front office has nobody to blame with themselves because they're the ones who offered him that fat contract. Secondary, let's look at the secondary. This is where you will especially see the investment. The investment and the time spent is all here. Our top cornerback, this is his 4th season. He's been on the team 3 full years now, going into his 4th season. We used a 3rd round pick on him, so the investment is there. We spent time and we spent draft capital bringing in Shaquille Griffin. He needs to perform big. This is somebody who we willingly invested the future in. Once again, this is not just some guy we picked up off the street because we had to throw somebody out there. This is somebody who has had our full investment. Our second cornerback, we traded a 5th round pick for him. It's just a 5th round pick. I understand that. A 5th round pick is not a huge investment, but we traded for him. We went after him actively. This is somebody who we clearly coveted, or else we would not have traded for him. If he does not perform, why did we trade for him? What made us think the trade would be worth it? Why did we do that? Our third cornerback looks like it's going to be Marquis Blair this year. He's in his 2nd year, not a ton of NFL experience, but he was a 2nd round pick. That is a significant expenditure of resources in the draft. If he does not perform, the front office needs to be held accountable for not using a 2nd round pick well. Our 4th cornerback, 5th round pick, Trey Flowers, not a huge expenditure, but entering his 3rd year. And he's somebody who has played almost 2,000 total snaps over the past 3 seasons. Counting the playoffs, he's probably a little past 2,000 snaps. The investment of time is there with Trey Flowers. So if he does not chip in and play well this season when he's called on, what was that use of time and resources worth? And safety. This one should be very obvious to everybody. Jamal Adams, the top safety on this team, the investment is off the charts. A 1st round pick, a 1st round pick, a 3rd round pick, and Bradley McDougald. We traded all that stuff to bring in Jamal Adams. If he does not perform big, then the front office can't just say, oh, well, this is just a dude we pulled out of undrafted free agency and threw out there because we needed a warm body. No, nothing like that. The investment at the safety position is there. 2 1st round picks, a 3rd round pick, a good quality safety starter. It's a huge investment that we made. It's gotta be big results, and I'm not going to hear any excuses. Free safety too. 5th round and 7th round trade. We traded 2 draft picks, not huge draft picks, but we made a trade to bring him in. This is not somebody we just scooped off the bottom of the barrel and said, okay, let's see what he can do. Let's maybe hope he's got a play or two in him. No, we traded for him. We actively pursued him. So basically the whole defense has been an investment of time or money or resources. Just with the exception of maybe Brian Monet and a backup safety or two, we have made significant investments in every position. And I didn't even talk about the rookies because I don't know about the rookies this year. I understand that's going to be tough. Uh, Jordan Brooks may or may not get on the field at all this season, really. Darrell Taylor starting the season injured. He may or may not get on the field. Alton Robinson, 5th-round rookie. I'm not putting a ton on him. I understand that, but go up and down the roster, you will see the investment. And even at kicker, I want to add this as well. We gave Jason Myers a fat contract last year. He is due a $3.6 million cap hit this season. $3.6 million to that kicker. Money that we chose to give him. Nobody forced us to do that. We chose to do that. So I'm looking up and down this roster. I'm looking at the resources spent on putting this roster together, and I feel very comfortable saying there is no excuse for anything less than the strong results that I laid out in the start of this video. And everything on this team, and I want to be very clear about this, everything on this team comes back to Pete Carroll and John Schneider. I can criticize some players. I can criticize some of the assistant coaches. I can criticize the coordinators. Ultimately, everything on this team comes back to John Schneider and Pete Carroll. If the coordinators are performing poorly, Pete and John are the ones who put the coordinators there. If the players aren't playing well, Pete and John are the guys who signed these players, drafted these players, traded for these players. They chose these players. And the money was there this offseason. We did not have a big backlog in our salary cap of dead money. We did not have to work around a whole bunch of dead contracts. We chose this path. And if this path does not pay big dividends in 2020, then you better believe that I'm going to be spending this offseason demanding new people in those positions, coaching staff and front office. If somebody gets hurt, even if people get hurt, guys, Carroll and Schneider are responsible for who our strength and conditioning coach is. No matter how you slice it, no matter how you look at it, it's all coming back to John and Pete this season. Point blank, period. We have a quarterback who is one of the best QBs in the league, in his prime, getting older. We can't afford to wait any longer. I understand that nobody was going to get fired this offseason because we had a successful year last year. We won a playoff game, went 11-5. But if we don't see an improvement this year, a noted improvement across the board, I am probably going to be calling for people's heads feverishly this offseason. So look forward to that if we underachieve. But I'll say it one more time. Everything on this team comes back to John Schneider and Pete Carroll, no matter how you slice it. You can blame the players, you can blame the coordinators, you can blame the assistant coaches. Pete and John are the guys responsible for putting everybody in position to succeed or fail. And that's really all I can say about that. This video went a little longer than I wanted to, but this is important, guys. I have been cutting this front office and coaching staff a little bit of slack the last 2 years, no more. This is the year I need to see big results, or I need to see new people making these decisions. Peace out. Go Hawks. And this is the put up or shut up year for me. This is the put up or shut up year for really this whole brain trust, but it all comes back to Pete and John. And with that, see you tomorrow. Go Hawks.